Walter Kunsing was one of the names mentioned by Guy Strait in the 1977 Senate committee hearings on child pornography. Strait stated that there's 3 producers operating at the same time as him: Roy Ames, Jerry, very likely Gerald Richards, as he had mentioned he was doing 14 years in prison, which Richards was also the other person who had chosen to interview for this hearing, and Strait could not give a concise name on another man mentioned. That name was Walter Kunsing, and he had stated he had a Polish-sounding name that was similar to the building, which the building that the hearings took place in was the Kunsing Federal Building, which is in Chicago, Illinois. This means that Walter Kunsing, he likely had Zinski at the end of his last name, yet I can't find anybody out there with the last name of Kuzinski. Though, I say, I'm just not sure, outside of Zinski, how you spell his name. Nonetheless, Strait claimed that Waltzer operated somewhere in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and presumably around the Washington, D.C. area. Interestingly, John David Norman, after his prison release, found his way to Pennsylvania in 1983, where he produced Handy Andy. He specifically lived around and in Aspers, Pennsylvania, which is only a distance from Washington, D.C. As we know, another figure operating out of Washington, D.C. at the time was Craig Spence, who he had figures such as Roy Cohn attending his parties, and he was a good friend of Larry King. He was known for sexual blackmail, though he was also known for late-night White House tours. If you read the book Confessions of a D.C. Madam, which is by Henry Vincent, who was the person who was running the brothel that had pretty much got tied up into the overnight White House tours and what Spence was doing, you find out that Spence had showed him how he was bugging his house. Him and King had talked about killing children and had gotten very aggressive about how they wanted Vincent to give them children. One of his escorts had also stated that he was given an overnight White House tour, and as we also know, Paul Bonacci would also talk of going to an overnight White House tour with his talks with Gary Caradori. Nonetheless, this leads to additional questions about Kunsing and the overall bigger operations of this time and how it could potentially lead into the Franklin cover-up. I also want to mention that I believe Trump could be involved in the Franklin cover-up because how I say Roy Cohn was, which if you even look deeper into Roy Cohn, I mean, there's people out there that claimed he had like blackmail on J. Edgar Hoover, which J. Edgar Hoover was hanging around Billy Barnes Jr. and Guy Strait. So there's a lot of questions, a lot of things that still need filled in this whole equation.